Okay. Good morning. Again, my name is Gerald Bridges. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I hope everyone can hear me now. Like I was saying before, I want to thank BSTD for allowing me to come before you today. I'm wishing everyone will be safe and taking good care of themselves. Yesterday, Coach Samira, Coach Riaz did an excellent job, and I hope that I can do at least half of what they did today. So before I start, I want to put a solicitation out for all coaches for my mother. I've been coaching my mother for about 5 years, pro bono, of course. But last night I quit, so I need somebody to help me. I tried the Grow Method, Oscar, but nothing worked. So you guys, I'll give you her number in the WhatsApp group. So good luck. She's kind of tough. But seriously though, uh, I want to start today out by with a quote, and my quote today will be by Benjamin Franklin. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I will remember. Involve me and I learn. So with that said, the team is ready to take your questions. If you have any questions, raise your hand, and Coach Samir and Coach Shama will get me those questions. And if I can't answer your question today, I'll definitely get your answer back later. In today's environment, emotional intelligence is critical. It's a critical asset that leaders and coaches must have in order to be effective. And as I go through this presentation today, you may think that some of the things are common sense, but I know from experience that working with an individual or leader that lacked these skills made my time with that company or with that person horrible. So, so I know many of you probably can feel that same way, and you probably work with a lot of people with what we'll call low emotional intelligence. So, what we'll do today, my overview today, again, my topic is leading with emotional intelligence. And what I want to do today, I want to go through several areas with you. I want to define emotional intelligence. We're going to also call it EI. Some people call it EQ or EI. I'll refer to it as EI today. The science of EI, we'll talk about that a little bit. And also the benefits of EI. And last but not least, some tools that you can enhance your EI. So the desired outcome for my briefing today, when we're done, hopefully you'll be able to have the ability to define EI and its components, provide techniques to improve your EI, and also understand the science of EI. So let's get started. So the book that I read was that helped me the most with this presentation was a book by Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman was a renowned psychologist, and basically he wrote a book in 1995, Emotional Intelligence. It was on the bestseller list for almost a year and a half and sold about 5 million copies. Also, at the end of the presentation, I do have a list of books that I've read that helped me along my way, and I'll give you those books. So Mr. Goleman, he defines emotional intelligence as the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotions well in ourselves and in our relationships. So Mr. Goleman and a lot of other individuals, they describe emotional intelligence with 5 pillars or 5 components. And those components are self-awareness, self-regulation, self-motivation, empathy, and relationship management. So what we'll do is we're going to go over a small definition with each one. Let's start with self-awareness. Self-awareness is recognizing one's own emotion and how they affect their belief. Okay, so I describe this by reading the reaction of someone else. You know how you are perceived by them. For example, if you walk up to someone and they're standing with their arms crossed, and so that's giving you the body language or the signals that maybe they don't want to talk to you. So being able to understand these body languages and these signatures, these signs, I should say, then you should be able to understand how that person feels about you. If they're biting their lips or if they're making a face, again, that's a way to tell you that maybe there's something going on with that person as far as your relationship. The next one would be self-motivation. Self-motivation includes our own personal drive to improve and achieve. It's commitment to our goals, initiative, or readiness to act on opportunities. I can't think of anything worse than working with an unmotivated leader. So it permeates throughout the whole organization. So those leaders that have self-motivation, they have that internal motivation, the driven goals, such as earning a college degree, being a healthier person, and also a self-motivated person with high emotional intelligence. They think more about others, about motivating others also, as being an example for others to see. The next one is a big one for me is empathy. Empathy is the ability to feel what the other person is feeling. It is to experience their emotions. It is the ability to put yourself in other person's shoes in a big, meaningful way. Now, there's a big difference between empathy and enabling. A lot of people feel that, just because I have empathy, that you have to enable people. There's a big difference. Empathy, again, is just putting yourself in another person's shoes. A good example for me is I have a young lady whose husband is deployed, and I didn't know at first, but she was coming in late, and her performance had deteriorated from her high standards. She's one of my high performers, but I had to put myself in her shoes and understand that she was a single mother and their husband was deployed. So it kind of made me understand the troubles that she had to go through, especially since I was raised by a single mother myself. So having empathy is a very important skill to put yourself in other people's position. The other one is, of course, relationship management. And Mr. Goldman refers to this as social skills also. So you'll see this as social skills. And it's usually easy to talk to. You can tell they are team players. You can just tell a leader that has a good relationship management. They are excellent at conflict management, basically finding the win-win solution. They're open to hearing bad news just as well as good news. I had a boss one time, he was like, hey, I don't want to hear bad news. Just bring me good news. And that was kind of hard so what we ended up doing was hiding the truth from him. And that just didn't work out too well. So again, good leaders with good emotional intelligence, they do want to hear the good and the bad. And again, they are really excellent at solving conflict management. Last but not least is self-regulation. Here's one of my big ones that I had to work on a lot because self-regulation is concerned with how you control and manage yourself and your emotions, inner resources, and abilities. It also includes your ability to manage your impulses. This is a good one for me because when I did my 360 assessment, one of the things that came back to me after the debrief was that sometimes I get too focused. And when I'm too focused, people don't want to approach me. So, and I'm short with them. And this is the feedback they gave me. So this is one of the ones I had to work on to make sure that I control my impulses and my emotions, especially when I get busy. So, okay. So that's the definition of emotional intelligence. So now that you guys got a brief overview of emotional intelligence, it's time to take a test. So, okay. So you knew there would be tests today. So, okay, hope you're ready. All right, so let me get ready for the test. I like that part. Okay, well done. I'm sure every one of you passed that test. That's one of my granddaughter's favorites, Layla. So, but seriously, it's just an animation about our feelings and how we react. And emotional intelligence is not about suppressing your feelings. A lot of people think that emotional intelligence is saying, okay, well, if I'm feeling angry or if I'm feeling sad, I should suppress that feeling. No, emotional intelligence is about recognizing how you feel in different situations and how you react. So you'll learn how to react. So emotional intelligence is one of the fields where you can get better and you can raise your emotional intelligence. And with that last cartoon about being scary, that transitions perfectly to the science. So I'll just go ahead and keep moving through the science. Through the science. Okay, so the science of emotional intelligence. When I first went to my corporate management development class, I was stunned as far as when she started talking amygdala and prefrontal contact cortex. I was like, well, I'm not a science student, but as my coach broke it down to me, it made sense to how we react certain ways. So let's look at the amygdala. Amygdala is a almond-shaped gray matter in the middle of your brain. And basically your amygdala says, hey, it detects things that are scary and dangerous in your environment. For example, my amygdala was on high yesterday when I listened to Coach Samir and Coach Riyad's profile. So, wow, these guys are great. How am I going to do? But my prefrontal cortex was regulating my stress, saying, hey, these guys are nice. There's a nice audience. They can't throw things at you, so you'll be okay. And plus, I practice and practice and practice. But seriously, though, the prefrontal cortex regulates the stress responses by making things less scary. So what happens after that? So it's almost like a battle. Your amygdala is saying, "Hey, run." It's a fight or flight. That's the fight or flight. That's where that's come from the amygdala. And what happens is that it wakes up the hypo, and which in turn wakes up the pituitary, and then those hormones from the pituitary makes the adrenal gland release cortisol. Now here's the This is the guy here. This cortisol travels through the blood and basically tells the kidneys to react to stress. So as you can see, once that amygdala kicks into gear, basically it starts that stress. And what we have to do is emotional intelligence is basically helping us reduce that cortisol in our body. So one of the things that I learned during research, they call it the hijacking of the amygdala. And again, what I want to do is just show you a quick video that tells you how it works. So here it goes.
When customers are dissatisfied with your service, their feelings can run high. They may have emotional outbursts which seem impossible to deal with. Understanding why people have emotional outbursts can help us control them. Put simply, the amygdala is the emotional center of the brain and the cortex is the thinking area. In particularly stressful or intense situations, the amygdala takes over the cortex, preparing us for fight or flight, and it makes it difficult for us to use intelligence or reasoning. This is known as the amygdala hijack. During an amygdala hijack, adrenaline is released and stays in the body for about 18 minutes. Here's an example of the amygdala hijack in action. The amygdala hijack is characterized by three signs: a strong emotional reaction, a sudden onset, and regretting your actions later. Any strong emotion can trip off the amygdala and impair the cortex's working memory. Rationality is overwhelmed by emotions and stops us from being able to think clearly. If you have an emotional outburst, you can regain control by forcing the thinking part of your brain into action. By labeling your emotions, you can reduce their intensity and return some of the activity back to the cortex, thus increasing cognitive control. The technique of giving assertive feedback is a good way to force the thinking part of your brain to analyze the situation. To do this, you identify how you feel, what is the emotion, about what event or behavior caused it, and why. Why did that event cause that emotion? Simply identifying these things will help you think rationally about them and help you control the amygdala hijack. Saying these things out loud will let others know how you feel. You can also help others regain control if they are experiencing an amygdala hijack. Just label the emotions you think they're feeling by empathizing with them. To empathize with the other person, identify how they feel, what is the emotion, about what event or behavior caused it, and why. Why did that event cause that emotion? Then say these things out loud to the other person. For example, I can tell you're frustrated that I was at lunch when you called. I realised you wanted a quick answer. Then pause to let your message sink in and to stop you from saying but. This forces the person to switch on their cortex in order to be able to understand your words. It also reassures them that you have an appreciation of their feelings and situation.
Okay. So again, just a representation of the hijacking of the amygdala, and our past experience also goes into play as far as the signals that's going into the amygdala and how our body reacts to the stress. For example, when I remember when I was a boy, I got chased by a dog, and I can remember it like it was yesterday, and I can see me running down the street yelling for my mother. And so even today, when I see a big dog, not a poodle, but a big dog, I get a funny feeling in my stomach. And it's just my body is reacting to past experience, and my amygdala is trying to get hijacked. But my prefrontal cortex is telling me, hey, just calm down. The dog is friendly, and until they bark, and then I run. But again, it's still being able to control it. Now, you, for example, same thing. Can you think of a situation where you felt different emotions in a stressful situation, a job interview, a promotion, or a wedding proposal? All these things generate the stress in your body. But again, especially for a job interview. If you've been through several job interviews before, if you practice, basically that'll help you relieve that stress. And at the same time, it'll increase your emotional intelligence. So enough of the science, a little science, enough of the science. Let's get to some of the benefits of EQ, or EI, I should say. I called it EQ, but EI. So EI, I see it as a very, very important aspect for your organization, for our organization, especially now with the workforce. Studies show that the millennials will take over the workforce. There are more millennials in the workforce now, as far as the baby boomers. So, as a matter of fact, this research that I read was that we have a more diverse work group, including baby boomers and millennials. But again, the millennials will be and are the most type of personnel in the workforce. So, and based off the research that I found out, millennials, they want to know. They just don't want to say, "Hey, go and do it." They want to know why they're doing it, and they want to know the reason. So we as leaders, or you as leaders, should learn how to adapt to the different leadership styles. So let's talk about return on investment. So all the websites that I have embedded in this presentation, I'll make sure you have those if you want them. I'll make sure you get them, get it to you either in the WhatsApp group or I'll email them out. So this website I found on Beyond Morale, and first of all, I'd like to apologize for the dated information on here, but it came to my attention because I had a couple of case studies from the United States Air Force, and being an Air Force retiree kind of caught my attention. But again, I apologize for the date of the data. So beyondmorale.com, basically, they did a study, American Express, and I'll scroll slowly. I don't want to get too dizzy, but I want to get down to the Air Force 2 case studies, and I'll walk through those. So United States Air Force. So here's the study, case one for the United States Air Force. So basically, the Air Force were having problems with their recruiters, and they were suffering from high rates of first-year turnover. And so what they wanted to do was increase the recruiter retention. And so what they did, they did an EQ assessment. And what they did, they took an EQ assessment of the successful recruits and the new recruits. And what they did, the notable score difference between the two groups were evident in the areas of assertiveness, self-actualization, stress tolerance, flexibility, problem solving, and happiness. So the impact that the Air Force found out that doing a EI or EQ study prior to the pre-employment screening, it was a 92% reduction in their first year turnover. So those are real savings that you can have by employing emotional intelligence. $2.7 million in training costs saved in the first year. And of course, just like the Air Force, we like to brag. So we wrote a report to the congressional subcommittee stating that, hey, our recruiters are always twice as productive as the other branches. So the takeaways are, of course, large reductions in training costs, decreased attrition rates, and increased productivity. The next study they did was for pararescue jumpers, the guys who jump out of the planes to help people. So same thing. They had a 82% of those entering into the program were not successfully completing the program. So again, the Air Force looked at the successful recruits and the ones that were not so successful, and they found out that the 5 factors were linked to successful completion was the flexibility, optimism, self-regard, happiness, and reality testing. So, and cost avoidance savings, this is the cost avoidance savings. A lot of things that a lot of times we do that with our Lean Six Sigma. We find out the cost avoidance savings was over $190 million per year in training costs. So again, the takeaways were large reductions in training costs and reduced attrition rates. The other white paper that I found was very interesting. So basically, they basically did the math, and for any organization or any leader, They really want to know how will this pay off for the organization. So I found this study, this white paper from the Institute of Health and Human Potential, and basically a couple of points I want to bring out is that over 80% of competencies that differentiate top performers from others are in the domain of EI. And so companies who have executives with higher levels of emotional intelligence are more likely to be highly profitable. And they go on to give you examples of how emotional intelligence has helped the companies American Express and Motorola. And again, I'll give you the links to these. But what I want to do, I want to bring you down to the Appendix 1, and I'll scroll slowly here. But again, there's a lot of good information here. About Appendix 1 talks about how they calculate EI, the return on investment. So what they did, they start out with the effect size between the top 10% and the lower 75%. And they came up with an effect size and a metric. So, and what they did, they made a 0.72, and which is a statistically relevant difference. So the example they gave is that assuming that an average lead salary is $75,000 a year, the difference between a high and average EI leader equates to $21,600 a year. And for an organization of 2,000 leaders, that ends up, that's quite a little bit of money, 43.2 million in human capital asset value per year. Now, it goes on to say that now this is just for the leader itself. And remember, when the leader raises their EI, it permeates through the whole organization through their direct report. So again, with that example, they came up with an ROI of almost 332% increase on your productivity. So based off of that information, I believe I know that emotional intelligence will definitely benefit you. Sorry. The other benefit was personal growth. And again, I think it's all tied in together. Once you get the return on investment with emotional intelligence for your organization, it also spills over to your family life and your personal life. And what this next website I found about personal growth, it lists 10 different aspects, 10 qualities, I should say, that will help you in your personal growth by employing a more emotional intelligence. And again, I won't go through the entire website, but I want to bring your attention to a couple of nice points that they made. And I'll scroll down. Of course, empathy, and they list 10. This is medium.com. Self-awareness, of course. Curiosity is one of the ones that caught my attention. And of course, the analytical mind, belief. This one I want to talk about was needs and wants. They bring in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think all of us have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs since we were yay high or since we first started working or in this field. Basically, Maslow said there's basic needs that everybody has to have. And the basic need is we need the physiological needs. We need food, warm, water, and safety needs. Next, physiological needs, safety, belonging, and then self-fulfillment, which is self-actualization. So the one thing that emotional intelligence will bring to you is distinguishing between your needs and your wants. So we all have these needs, but again, there's a big difference between the things that you need and the things that you want. I want the nice Corvette, but I know I can't have it right now, so I'll just make sure I just focus on my needs. But again, this is a good information, a good source of how emotional intelligence can help you in your personal life and your personal growth. Okay, moving along. Okay, so we went through the benefits, we went through the science, and I went through the basic emotions. So the next thing I want to do is I want to go through some improvements for each of the pillars, and I'll start with self-awareness. So self-awareness, I won't go over the definition again, but some of the things you can do to improve your self-awareness is keep a journal, okay? Journals help you improve your self-awareness. If you spend just a few minutes each day writing down your thoughts, especially now as we go through these unique times in our world, keeping a journal is a very good exercise as far as understanding how you feel and how COVID is affecting you personally. Slow down. I guess we don't have a choice right now. It's forcing us to slow down. And when you experience anger or strong emotions, slow down to examine why. And remember, no matter what the situation, you can choose how you react to it. One of the tools that I found useful, sorry, is a poem here. Sorry. I am, and again, I'll send this out. I came across this about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and basically, it was an exercise that was given to me in my courses, and basically, I use it with some of my direct reports and some of the people that I coach, and it's just an exercise in self-reflection, and basically, if you sit down and think about it. You can come out with some real good things. And one of the things I found out is that once I do it and I come back to it, it's really kind of motivating. So again, it's a good example. Next is I'll go on self-motivation and the improvements for self-motivation. So self-motivation, what we can do is re-examine why you're doing your job. As we go through our day-to-day business, sometimes we forget, while we're there. In my line of work, we serve our customers, and sometimes, we get caught up in our own our own things that we want to do, and we forget why we're there for the customer. So, in my organization, we definitely preach customer first, customer first. So sometimes you have to re-examine that. Know where you stand. Determine how motivated you are to lead. There's leadership and motivation assessments you can take to just let you know where you stand, and be hopeful and find something good. Be optimistic. I was thinking about that this morning as far as being optimistic, how we can use this COVID situation and how we can come out on the other end and be a better person, be a better leader, be a better family person, whatever you want to do, but be optimistic and let's make something good about this. Every time you face a challenge or even a failure, trying to find at least one good thing about that situation. We learn something from every situation. Some of the most powerful things that I've learned from leaders are what not to be. So from every situation, try to find something that you can learn. The next one is how can we improve our empathy? Again, I mentioned this earlier. Pay attention to body language. Hey, if that person is turning their away from you or biting their lips, hey, it's time for you to reevaluate how you are affecting that person. Respond to feelings. You ask your assistant to work late again. It's just an example. Basically, tell them how much you appreciate them. I mean, sometimes you have to ask people to work late, but try to understand and put yourself in their position. Want to go through self-regulation. So self-regulations and improvements. Know your values. This is a big one here. If you know your code of ethics, and just like in ICF or any other organization, you have to have a code of ethics. And if you live by those code of ethics, when you get into situations, you don't have to doubt yourself. You can always go by your code of ethics. That'll help you out in your self-regulation. Hold yourself accountable. One of my pet peeves with my direct reports is that, hey, we're going to all make mistakes, but own up to your mistakes and let's not try to make it again. But once you own up to it, we learn from our mistakes and we move on. Practice being calm. The next time you're in a challenging situation, make sure you breathe and tense up and just realize that moment. Understand that the amygdala is trying to get hijacked and try to understand and being calm and understand where you are. Part of self-regulation I put down here, the emails. A lot of us, I know myself, I send these emails and what I do, I put them in draft because sometimes I get excited. And so what I've learned is that it's best not to send that email right away. Just put it in draft mode and come back to it. And then I'll put it in a more political language. Another thing I put down here is my Amazon shopping. I'm an Amazon junkie. So what I started doing, I put my purchases in my shopping cart and I let it sit for like 24 hours. If I still want it, I come back to it. But all a part of the self-regulation. Last but not least is the relationship management. Again, learn conflict resolutions. Be a part of being a leader, or having children, or you have to learn how to resolve conflict. Now, there is good conflict, so you have to have some good conflict to get a team working together. I have 17 different employees from all over the world, different nationalities: Bahrainis, Indians, Pakistanis. So it's there's going to be conflict, but I'm very proud of my team. So we call it crucial conversations. But again, it's definitely important to learn how to have conflict resolution. Improve your communication skills. Communicate. My theory is communicate, communicate, communicate. And again, communication includes listening. And again, learn how to praise others as a leader. Giving praise is one of the main things we have to do. And we give awards, and not only just money, but we give awards. And I think I know the employees, they respond better to the awards being in front of a crowd and being recognized than the money, I think, but they do like the money also. Okay. So in summary, in conclusion, one of the things that I wanted to say was that, the age-old adage, are leaders born or bred? And I believe they are bred. I say, look at the many leadership conferences, such as the one to assist you today with your aspirations. And I believe that with the right mentality, the leader, the mentor, the coach, you can achieve any SMART goal that you set. One of the things that I live by is information plus application equals transformation, and information minus application equals frustration. We all go through a lot of training. We go through a lot of seminars. And so one of the things that I found out is that, we have to apply what we learn. And I think that if we put forth the effort, we will find that it gets easier over time. And that's one of the things about emotional intelligence. If you just try some of the things that I mentioned today, and you probably got your own different exercises, it'll become easier over time. But it's one of those things that's continuous improvement, and that you have to work on. Okay. So, so what did we talk about today? I talked about understanding EI and its components, ways to improve EI and components, and I talked about the science of EI. And what I didn't put here, we talked about the return on investments. So, with that, I thank you for allowing me to come before you for a few minutes. Sorry about the technical difficulties in the beginning. I really want to thank Coach Samira, Coach Shema for their assistance in helping me as far as making sure I had everything together. And with that said, that will conclude my briefing today. Thank you.